Hey everybody, how's it going? Today I'd like to discuss the 501c3 nonprofit that I started, the free repair workshops that I started doing a few months ago, how I plan on doing these into the future, why I plan on doing them the way I plan on doing them, how I plan on funding them, and why I have not done any over the past 3 to 4 months. Let's dive into this. So when I started off in this business, I really did not have a lot of people to turn to when I needed advice, when I wanted to learn how to use a micro soldering, iron or a microscope or a hot air station or anything like that, and I didn't have the ability to just walk into some place and get practice and use them. I was broke when I started in this business, and I had to claw my way out of poverty, one A1181 screen repair in the park at a time, and I wanted to create something that made it easier for other people to do what I do. So I started this YouTube channel where I would show people how to do all the repairs that I do. I'd explain the why and the how behind them, and I created all these little guides and things like that. And last year, somebody reached out to me who apparently was very wealthy and said, "I like what you're doing. What would you do if you had money?" I thought it was a bullshit phone call because 99% of the calls I get like this are complete bullshit from somebody in the YouTube comment section who just kind of wants to call and waste my time. But this wasn't. It was actually a fairly wealthy donor that wanted to start a nonprofit to help me out. And I genuinely appreciate what they did. And we've done some interesting work with that nonprofit. We have funded advocacy organizations that have helped provide education on what right to repair is to a lot of other people and organizations. Rather than it just being me talking on YouTube saying, here's what right to repair is and why it's important, you have small coalitions in areas all around the country that are going around and talking about why right to repair is important from their perspective, not just mine. So if you have somebody that doesn't like my brash New York City demeanor and how I talk, well, there's lots of other people that don't have my demeanor, that are trusted in their particular communities, that are talking about it. That's awesome, and I've been working with people at USPIRG to organize that. You also have pieces like Repair.Wiki, where we are funding the creation of guides that help teach people how to repair their stuff. And iFixit will have some surface level guides, screen, battery, stuff like that, and we'll have some really deep dive guides on a lot of different devices that are popular, and we kind of make this little troubleshooting guide that's really, really more detailed than what you'll find almost anywhere else. That's something that I've been able to do. Now, there's something else I wanted to do, which is free workshops, so that where anybody can come by, use our equipment, ask an expert that works in the repair business that actually does repairs every day how to do something or what it is they're doing wrong, and get some advice on how to do better. And I wanted this to be free, open to the public. Somebody could come in, ask Paul or Chris or myself a question, have us look over their shoulder, tell them what they're doing wrong, and teach them how to do something properly. The problem that I'm having here, excuse me, sorry about that. The problem that I was having is that doing this out of the 501c3 is a nightmare for a number of reasons that I wanted to discuss in this video. So I am going to be doing this out of my for-profit business rather than the 501c3. I wanted to explain how and why. So this is a open to the public repair workshop that I did in July of this year. I did about 2 or 3 so far. All of the equipment in this room is my equipment. That's my microscope, my space, my employees. Well, not him. This guy doesn't work for me, but other people who worked here were showing up for it. My microscope, my pretty much everything here belonged to my for-profit business. And we were having people come by, and the people that come by were, able to get advice on things, or, we were, showing them how to solder stuff back onto boards that they had screwed up and all that. And this workshop, if I want to do it out of a 501c3, I cannot use the money for my space. Because, well, that's a conflict of interest. I would be, even if I'm using my space for charity, why are you using your for-profit business's space with 501c3 funds? You can't do that. If I wanted to have my employees be the instructors, well, why are you choosing your private business's employees to be the instructors? That's a conflict of interest. You got to find other people to do it. So to find other people to do it, I have to find people and literally train them from scratch. Like, Paul is the result of 4.5 years of working here and several years of watching the YouTube channel. People like, all the people here that were trained and like have all the experience in doing this, I spent a lot of time on that. I don't really want to start fresh with somebody else. So I thought, okay, well, I have this giant pot of money here. What if I just offered, I don't know, something crazy like $70 an hour for an instructor? Even at $70 an hour, most of the people that have contacted me said, yeah, this sounds like a great idea. If you're willing to train me in how to be an instructor, I'd love to do it. I was like, what? I mean, it's kind of like if you're trying to hire somebody to be a black belt instructor at a martial arts dojo, and somebody who's never thrown a punch comes by and says, hey, I'd love to do this job. I just need you to train me. It's like, I'm not going to spend 5 years turning you into a black belt for a job opening I have today. So that's a mess. I can't use my location for it, so I'd have to fund another location somewhere else that I would have to then commute to, then train somebody from scratch on how to do the workshops. And above all, if somebody shows up to the workshop looking to learn how to do something for a for-profit business, let's say, I don't know, somebody who wants to run their own repair business and make money doing it, shows up and wants advice, then the 501c3 funds for that workshop are being used for a, quote, private benefit, which would then be something that is not 501c3 compliant. If I can't find anybody to actually teach the classes, so I decide to teach them, well, why are you teaching the classes with this money when you're the director? There's so many conflicts of interest, and there's so many things that just make it, that I get why they're there. They're there to prevent people from abusing charities, because there is a lot of rampant charity abuse, or, you know, there's Clinton foundations, Trump foundations, all this other shit where people are just self-dealing. I get it. But all the requirements make it... Somebody's just honking for about 10 seconds. Gotta love New York City. Anyway, it makes it so that I would have to go out of my way so far that this would barely resemble my original idea, which is people can show up, use our equipment in my office, and get advice from people like Paul or Chris or Anel or David, or people that have been trained over years that I know are good at their job, and learn how to do repairs, whether on their own devices or for their for-profit businesses. I don't care. I want people to learn across the board. To be able to do this idea out of the 501c3, I would have to fund a makerspace that is located about an hour away from me, buy all of the equipment for that makerspace, train someone on how to be an instructor, and then ensure that the people that show up to that place after I've started everything from scratch are not people that are looking for a benefit for a for-profit business. That's insane. That's an insane amount of work to do, and honestly, it seems kind of wasteful given that I have all this equipment here already that I'm already using, and it's also a lot more work because I got to commute back and forth between this and another location to manage somebody that I'm training from scratch from a nonprofit that I've admitted that I'm not even paying myself for. It just doesn't make sense. So what I've decided to do is I have decided to do these workshops out of my for-profit business. I would like them to continue to remain free. And rather than using 501c3 funds for this, because I can't, and rather than use 501c3 funds to create this from scratch somewhere else in a manner that is just very far away from what I initially envisioned, I would like to try and fund this by using Patreon to my for-profit business, and then make this workshop free to anybody who shows up. What I'd like to do is I'd like to scale it to where the amount of workshops that I'm able to do goes up and down with the amount of Patreon funding that I'm actually able to raise for these. So even if I get $0 on Patreon, I'd like to still do these workshops with a certain frequency, because honestly, I just kind of find it fun to have people come by. But my office does need to get used for for-profit repairs, and my employees do need to get used for for-profit repairs so that we can pay for this. So I have a Patreon over here where people can donate, and I also have a meetup.com page over here where anybody can sign up for these workshops that, again, are going to be free to anybody who wants to show up to them. And what I'd like to do here is kind of figure out what the demand is for it and kind of schedule them going forward. Now, one of the reasons I haven't scheduled them over the past few months is I didn't know if I was actually going to be in this location over the next few months. You know, I've come to an agreement with my landlord after negotiations so that at the very least for the 9 or 11 months, it makes sense for me to keep all my employees at the current location that we have in New York City. And if I was not able to retain them in that location, if I was going to have to find a place like, you know, any one of these dumps that I saw recently, I'd be able to do repairs out of this space, but I wouldn't be able to fit people that showed up for a workshop. You know, when I was doing these workshops, 5 to 20 people were showing up when I announced them. That would never fit here. So I didn't want to announce these workshops until I knew that I was going to retain the space that I have to do them. And next year is going to be very telling. If business returns to New York City and a lot of people want to do these workshops and a lot of people show up for them and a lot of people donate to continue it running, then this space will continue going. And if it doesn't, then we'll revisit from there. But the idea that I would have to pretty much train someone from scratch for a year or two to turn them into an instructor for this, then have it run out of another location, it just seemed incredibly wasteful, that I pretty much have a system that works. In order to fund my own system using the money that somebody donated, I would be embezzling, not getting anywhere near that. And if I want to fund it in another location, I'm going to be duplicating my existing setup somewhere else. I'm going to have to manage that at another location. I'm going to have to train somebody from scratch because I'm not allowed to use the employees that I currently have without it being a conflict of interest. Can't have myself do it because that would be a conflict of interest. I'm just staying away from that with a 20-foot pole. So the 501c3 is going to get used for educational materials, consumer advocacy, and right to repair education and advocacy, but I'm not going to be using the 501c3 Repair Preservation Group for these workshops because it's literally like having handcuffs. I am incredibly grateful to the individual that reached out to me and said, I like what you're doing, and I would like to donate to a 501c3 so that you could do more of what you're already doing. And we are doing more of what we are already doing. There's going to be a lot more advocacy work, a lot more education work, a lot more stuff in Repair.wiki. But this workshop idea that I had, doing it out of a 501c3, it's literally like wearing handcuffs behind my back while watching porn. It's a nightmare. Like, who wants to watch porn with their hands handcuffs behind their back? That's what it feels like. So I like this workshop idea. I think it's a fun idea. But I can't figure out how to make this work out of the nonprofit without being incredibly painful and incredibly bureaucratic. And I don't want to be dealing with some shit where, like, you know, I don't know, some douchebag that works for Apple shows up to one of them, pretends that he works at a private repair shop or some shit, says this nonprofit is being done for private benefit, and like just gets me audited or some crap like that. So I'm not going anywhere near that. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to do the repair shops out of my store, out of my for-profit business, with all the equipment that you see here, which again, all of this belongs to me. I stream this to Repair Preservation Group's YouTube channel, but 100% of what you see on screen were rent paid by me, employees paid by me, equipment paid for by me. And I'm going to have this Patreon over here where anybody who wants to see more of this stuff happen can donate to it. And I will have a sliding scale for how many workshops I do based on the donation amount that we get. Again, you know, rent is expensive. My employees are expensive. Having people that are trained are expensive. And I do need to have those people pumping out board repairs at $200 to $400 a pop and data recoveries in order to be able to pay them and rent. And I'm going to do a little bit of a sliding scale here, depending on what shows up here. And if business returns over the next year, or there are so many people that love this idea that donations pile up here, I'll be able to continue doing them out of this space. If not, then I will give up, move into some little dump like this where I can't fit them, and go from there. That's it for today. I apologize for it taking me as long as it did to figure out how to structure this idea, but I didn't want to announce workshops when I didn't know if I was going to be staying in my current location, and if landlord negotiations did not go well for me, and admittedly I'm not really great with negotiating or bargaining or anything like that. If they did not go well, I was not going to stay in my current store, and if I did not stay in my current store, I was not going to be able to offer these. So I didn't really want to announce more workshops until I knew that I was secure in my location. And it looks like I'm going to be secure in this location until about, at the very least, September of next year. So let's see. I'm going to include links in the description down below. And when we do these workshops, I will be live streaming them to either this channel or the Louis Rossmann Random Live channel. And I'm not going to be live streaming them to the Repair Preservation Group YouTube channel because this is not being done under the umbrella of Repair Preservation Group. And doing it under the umbrella of Repair Preservation Group seems like it would be a lawyer's wet dream, but a repairman's nightmare. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I hope to see you at some of these repair shops. I'm going to be announcing some over the next few weeks, and it'll be fun seeing you guys in person again. Again, it was really cool having people show up with different levels of experience, different items, and working with me. Some guy showed up with a recorder, couldn't fix that. Some dude showed up with air that he ripped pads off of. That was fun. The CB radio that he ripped a bunch of stuff off of. That was fun. And getting the radio to work again was kind of cool. Getting the GPS to work again was kind of cool. I'd like to create a space where people could just show up and ask their questions, get their experience, have their questions answered, and go back home or go back to their for-profit repair shops and make money fixing stuff. And I want to be able to make this available to people regardless of their economic situation. So even if you're broke, you can show up for free. And if you're somebody who is independently wealthy or rich, then you can donate to make it possible for other people to be able to show up to these things. That's it for today. I will see you later, and hopefully I'll get to see you guys at some of these repair workshops, which I'll be announcing more frequently now that I actually know that I'm not leaving my particular workshop location. Also, Mr. Clinton says hi, and I'll see you in the next video.